Let's talk about loopback plugs. There are loopback testing devices for just about any type of communications connection. It could be a serial connection, an older DE9 connection. You may hear these referred to as loopbacks or bouncebacks or null connections, whatever you want to call them. I usually just refer to it as a loopback. And the most common one is the Ethernet RJ45 loopback connector. This guy has two ports, and the first is the male port, which has the RJ45 plug, and then the other side has the female port. So you can connect this in a variety of ways. And what we do with this, the reason we use this is really to find one of two things. One, we can find if a particular cable is connected to a switch. So let's say there's a jack on the wall and you don't know if it's connected to a switch or not. You could plug this into the jack and then that port will light up on the switch. So you can, check it that way. You could also test a patch cable. If the patch cable is connected directly to a switch, you could do that from this end. And so to show this, we'll connect this to a basic 4-port switch here. And I'll make a connection to one of the ports now. And the lights are pretty dim, but you can see here there's a power light. And right now it doesn't have a connection, but it usually takes about 20 seconds or so to show up. And there it goes. There's our power connection. We have a link light for that particular port. If I was to switch the port, again, it'll take about 20 seconds to register that guy. And you can do this with just about any regular switching device. And that link light should come up once it registers that guy. So there you go. And it shows the port that it is actually connected to. We see here it's connected to port 5. And see that here. You have 1 through 5 here. And then it'll show that link light. Regardless of what switch you use, this will work. But if you have one of those Soho routers, 4-port device that is a multifunction network device, it may not function properly. Because effectively what this guy is a crossover connection. Pins 1 to 3 and 2 to 6 are crossed. So it's kind of like a crossover cable. It's not a crossover cable, but it's like it does the same type of thing. But instead of the crossover cable connecting like devices, this bounces the signal back because those wires are crossed inside the single individual plug. It's not like they're crossed across a cable. So that's the loopback plug. So again, this may or may not work for your Soho router. How often are you actually going to need that? This is more for, if you have a rack mount 24-port switch, 48-port switch, or that type of thing. Now, sometimes these fail. If you have an issue with one of these, you can use a basic patch tester to test it. And just plug in the guy and then run your test. And you should see 1 and 3 lit up because pin 1 is crossed to 3 on that plug. And 2 and 6 should light up because pin 2 is crossed to 6. That's the essence of a crossover connection. And then they cross the others for good measure. 4 to 7 and 5 to 8. And that's good because you can actually use this for more than just Ethernet. You can use this for other types of networking connections as well that use those other pairs of pins. And so it cycles through, and there you have it. That's your loopback adapter. So it's a nice little device to find out if the cable is connected to a switch, and if so, what port it is connected to. Now, there's the better way to do that is to use, a tone generator. If you have a ton of cables and you're not sure where the cable is, and if you plug this in and you don't get a link light, then you're going to want to use a tone and probe kit, or use your cable certifier that has tone built in to check for that guy. Now you can this that was the first way. The second thing you can do with this is test the computer. You can test the network card to see if it's actually functioning. And now I'll show that now. Okay, so here we have the back of the AV editor computer we built. Here is our RJ45 port, so we can test that. Let's say that we're not sure that it's working properly, and we either don't have a network connection, a wired network connection, or the wired network connection is not giving us a link light. We can narrow down the problem by plugging in the loopback adapter and see if it generates that link light for us. Now, again, when you plug it in, it takes about 20 seconds usually to register. And so we have our loopback adapter here. And by the way, you don't have to just connect with this. You can use a patch cable if you want. And connect that to that side. And you can do that when you're connecting to the PC or to a switch. And then you'd use the other end of the patch cable to connect into the port, whatever that port may be. But we could just connect the RJ45 loopback into the port. And so we'll do that now. And we'll give it about 20 seconds and it should light up. And so 20 seconds passed, and it was just about 20 seconds, and we got that link light. So we know that the network card is working physically. We know we're getting electricity to the card is working properly, and it's bouncing signal back and forth from the card, from the network adapter, into this RJ45 loopback. And I keep saying card, but this is really integrated into the motherboard, but the network adapter. So whatever it is, a network adapter or a switch port, that'll link up and give you a link light after 20 seconds or so if it's a working port, if the connection is good. So that's a good way, a good, nice little tool to use to test the physical connection, physical connectivity, and check those LEDs. Make sure that you have that connectivity. Then we could say, okay, we were connecting a network cable, but we weren't getting a link on the PC. We've ruled out that it's the PC's network adapter. So now we can go further and test that network connection. And you might use this, or you might use your tone and probe kit, or you might use your cable certifier. It all depends on how far you have to go with it and, what the scope of the problem is. So a little bit about the RJ45 loopback. You can use that to find particular cables and what ports they're connected to on a switch, and identify if the RJ45 connection on the computer is working properly. So that's it for this sub lesson.